Iron Man is an interesting character for us. We've done Spider-Man, we've done X-Men, we've done superpowers.
Many of the Marvel properties have long histories in Hollywood. Iron Man was at least at Fox and New Line before coming back to us. And for whatever reason, the time wasn't right.
It's been a different journey for Marvel since it's really their first real venture coming out as a company, fully financing and releasing Iron Man. And it's a big deal to be a part of this production. So much of the company is now invested into this potential franchise, which is really what these films are meant to be.
But we need a storyteller.
John is a talent in many fields, in front of the camera, behind the camera. When you look at Maid, Elf, and Zathura, that's a track of a filmmaker that is nearing the top of his game.
But very important for us with him is his love for Iron Man. That was the movie he wanted to make.
Iron Man is one of the comics where you have very few purists who have attached themselves to specific storylines. In the case of Iron Man, it's the myth of Iron Man, it's the suit, it's what the suit could do. Things change from time to time with the suit, but there's a basic character that Tony Stark has and a certain look that the suit has.
I went in to meet them and then wound up screen testing for Tony Stark for Iron Man. It's like, I went in the building and everywhere you go, there's another movie you love, and the Spider-Mans and everything. I go, God, it'd be really great if I could do one of these.
It was kind of like an independent director and cast, but doing this great big film. So it was the best of both worlds.
I'm jealous.
Next time.
This is the part of the Marvel offices that they gave us for Iron Man pre-production. Normally, we would, start this, we would rent some office space near a studio. We're about to move to Playa Vista Studios. So this allowed us to sort of get a running start and be close to the people who are part of Marvel Studios here. So it was nice. We had these great digs. We got to use the meeting spaces, and we're starting to outgrow this space. Here are some different, the evolution of concept art for the suit. These are earlier designs that we didn't go with, but they helped evolve the suit into the final look. The suit evolved over decades, and it wasn't until an artist named Adi Kronov took a whack at the costume and reinvented it that you found a suit that looked more like solid armor, more like something with a military application, almost like a flying machine, and not like a suit that somebody slipped on, was skin tight and happened to be metallic. This suit felt real. It felt like something mechanical, something that was tech-based. And that was the image that I gravitated towards from the whole packet of 40 years of Iron Man images that was given to me.
The suit for the movie is completely different. In my artwork, I try to make things appear functional, but they're not functional because there isn't a real person inside. We spent months and months trying to figure out how different sections bend and intersect, and how there could be a person inside, and if he bends his arm, it will actually break his bones, and all those details like that. And then the helmet and how the helmet opens, and can the head fit inside the helmet, and then does the make the head look too big? All these things that in a comic book, I just draw whatever looks the best.
We have basically the chest piece, which you see on one of the other renderings here, the abdomen piece, which would go on sort of like a tank top. You have the boxer shorts sort of area, and then the leg, and the whole idea is to make each of these components expand so that you can just slip into them as one big piece, and then as you put them on, they would collapse and end up snug on the leg.
Here's Ryan working on some keyframe work from the movie. Tony Stark first waking up in captivity. This is the beginnings of some thought for the beginnings of the first gray Iron Man suit. So you can see sort of the chest piece, and as you can see, these arm pieces were inspired by this piece of hardware here.
This armature that we got from Stan Winston is basically a starting point to say how, what are the basic pivot points that you would need to be able to move your arms and have as much flexibility as possible.
This is also something that we use to help limit the movement that the performer used when we're doing some mocap tests for the CGI on it. This is sort of a dogfight sequence that happens late in the second act. As we can see, we're sort of cross-cutting between Rhodey, the pilots, and Tony Stark flying. And these have been color-coded and worked on and photocopied because this is part of what was used to be input into the animatic. This was all input into the computer and animated, and you're able to watch it like you would a movie.
I think very early on, John had a very compelling vision of how he wanted to cover the Iron Man action stuff. He wanted to shoot it like we took the Iron Man suit, turned it on, and basically we're flying beside it in a helicopter, and that's how we got Iron Man on camera.
One thing that we still have over previs and animatics is that you can draw a scene really, really quickly, and you can draw changes really, really quickly, and as it should be. I mean, it's an exploratory part of the process to find the vocabulary of the movie and find the angles you want and come up with the coolest stuff possible.
If anything, that's the comic book artist who's sort of like, I'm just going to draw. I'm going to make this scene huge, and before you know it, it just expands into something that's absolutely unmanageable, unshootable. It will never go in any schedule. But what you can do from that is take the things in it that you respond to, and that's what John did.
So this is where I was hoping to be my office, but they made an appeal to me that this was the biggest room, so we need a room for all the previs crew. So you have animators, CAD artists, everybody who is involved with taking what we did on the storyboards and translating it into 3D animation. There are certain shots, like this is a really successful shot here. We like this one a lot. His little lights come on, his flying lights. They're coming into the Santa Monica Pier. Some of these are a little bit too quick, some of them are a little bit off. The flow is pretty good, but once we refine it in the previs, it will then translate pretty much one for one with the final film. We've seen flying in so many movies, especially through buildings in New York City. We wanted to put this one on the West Coast, where flight sort of began. Where you sort of had Hughes aircraft, sort of keep the tradition of him being a Howard Hughes type character alive. I really like this one, how he's flying over all the buildings. It really feels like you're flying up into space, to the stars. That's really cool. So when we're done with this, it'll actually, hopefully, translate into the actual movie. And we'll be able to watch some finished film while we're working on the movie and show it to the actors and the crew for morale. That's really great. And the camera shake is pretty strong. That's really good. See, this is exciting. This gives me goosebumps. You're not even fighting a bad guy here. All you're doing is really flying through the air. As I was talking to the people doing the previs, the artists, the storyboard artists, the animatics, it was about how do you really viscerally make you feel as though you're flying. We've all dreamt about flying. How exciting is one of those dreams? It's never boring. I think just the feeling of flying for the first time in a movie like this, if you handle it right, should give you chills. Just seeing him fly, really feeling like you're flying with him, if you cover it the right way, shoot it the right way, present it to the audience in the right way, it should be an emotional experience. And then when you fight the bad guy, even more fun. But don't blow past that stuff. What's it really like? What would it really be like to get in a suit that could fly? It would be a life-changing experience. Don't lose sight of that. You're making a movie. And movies are about emotion. They're about allowing the audience to experience something they can't in real life. But let them experience it in a real way. And that's the hope. The hope is to ground this thing in reality wherever we can, because it's so superhuman. These heroes are so larger than life that any opportunity we can find to sort of screw it down to reality, we would be hard-pressed to make a movie without taking advantage of those opportunities that you would really feel something about.
Generally speaking, if you're making a movie about a billionaire who can go anywhere, who can do anything, and has any amount of money to do anything, and you you have a restricted budget and you have to try and create that world that he lives in, that's a big challenge.
He doesn't just have the G5, he has like the 737 project. You know, everything is elevated with him. It's not just a house, it's an insane mansion on the bluff in Malibu on the cliff. And so there was a lot of fun in designing, location scouting, casting, shooting. You get to play a little bit of fantasy because when you think you've got something that's enough, you amp it up more.
When we were looking for a place to film, you know, there were a lot of possibilities. Marvel doesn't have its own lot yet. Maybe someday they will. And so we're looking for stage space that was large enough and in the Los Angeles area. And one of the places where a lot of films have shot is here at Playa Vista. And we thought it was really cool because this was the place that the Spruce Goose was originally built. It was Howard Hughes's old assembly factory and his headquarters for some time. You know, it wasn't lost on us that the legacy of Howard Hughes was, you know, sort of alive and well here. And Tony Stark is a little bit of the heir to the throne of the Howard Hughes reputation.
You know, for so long, the divisions were kept very separate. The film division out in Hollywood, which really was producing the films with other studios, was kept was separate from the publishing division where they make the comics, was kept separate from the animation division. And it was important to me to bring all those divisions together.
There's multiple chambers, obviously, to this day for the escape sequence.
Marvel Films invited a bunch of us out. You know, myself, Joe Quesada, Axel Alonso, our big editor brain trust, and a number of our key creators. It was a great thing even just to go out and be asked and to walk around the half-finished sets and to see all the pre-production design. You know, it really makes you feel, just as a guy working at Marvel, that this really is our movie as opposed to a movie.
Too much of a shift to ask if he feels he's fallen short. I think that's what we're beginning to imply further with the alcoholism is part of this organizing.
Working in comics for so long, and sometimes you're watching them and thinking, that wasn't quite right if they just stayed a little closer to the source material. So part of our being there is saying, guys, how far are we away from the source material? How do we steer it back? Is it okay to steer away this way? And how do we just make this the best possible movie?
And I think also for Pepper, she has to realize that the moment that kiss happens, she's the glue in his life. She, you know, without him, the whole thing would fail.
We had two great writing teams on this film. Art Markham and Matt Holloway came on and did some early drafts for us and continued throughout the process on and off. And Mark Fergus and Hawk Oxford came on board as well. They had worked with John on a film he developed in the studio and ended up moving forward.
The Marvel Comics has been really fantastic about giving us the whole history, teaching us everything we could ever want to know about the characters, and then saying, you know, feel free to explore around those parameters.
Yeah, you see the there, you'll love this. Here.
We made a decision early to go with Stan Winston Studios to design with us the Ironman suits.
That's going to be too kicky. Yeah, and that's too matty. I like the brush feel. Yeah,
I'd like to say, gosh, everybody was just clamoring after us to do Iron Man, but the fact of the matter is that the minute we heard that Iron Man was being made, we went after it. We're all Iron Man fans. It was the perfect thing for the studio, so we went after the show, and at just about the time that Jon Favreau was signed to actually direct it is when we took our first meeting with Marvel, and John was in that meeting.
This particular film is a little bit more interesting because there was already a design idea or a series of design ideas in place. They had conceptual drawings of Iron Man that fit a certain body proportion and a certain body type. So we had to inherit those and then bring them into our world and make them function. The big challenge was the fact that they hadn't cast anyone to be Iron Man.
And here it is. Here's the final.
And that's what it comes to.
Here it is. Yeah. That's what we get for the amount we have to spend.
The journey you generally go through and the creation of a suit is you sit down with Stan Winston, his design team, our internal team, Favreau, the producers, and everyone starts with drawings and images, and you Photoshop and you get to sort of a 2D drawing, like a color drawing that you can hang up. That then gets moved to a modeling stage, to a 3D model, so you see a quick time of a model that turns. Then that goes to a clay maker. And then you see the first clay made of it, and it's something tangible now that you can touch and you can spin.
And we're convinced that a human head would actually fit in this thing, right? It's exciting. This is when you really get a sense of the movie coming together, when you start to see this. It's a bigger leap in some ways to go from an idea to this than to go from this to the action.
And then there's generally a maquette that's made, which is a miniature desktop model that might be only 2 feet tall.
Progress is coming along. Obviously, we don't have the board now.
And then you wait, and you know the next step is the suit. And it's the full-size, shootable, physical suit that a person's going to get into.
I've never made a movie of this size before or of this genre. I've always been a fan, but it's a daunting undertaking. The day I knew everything was going to be okay was the day that Robert Downey Jr. was attached to play Iron Man.
That is gorgeous.
What Kevin's going to do, and they're going to take a cast of your foot so that it's a very low relief strap.
Stan Winston's reputation and Shane, the guys on that team, I worked with them before. Every time you go into their shop, you go, oh my God, and they did that, and they did that, and AI, and this and that. And you see a history of films that I grew up on. The reason that I'm playing Tony Stark, the reason that I'm involved in Iron Man, the reason that I'm so excited is I'm crazy about movies. That's why I wanted to become an actor. That's why I could cry watching Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. I buy into movies. I love it. I see The Fly. I don't care if that's Jeff Goldblum going, you know, I'm like, I'm in it. They're transporting, flies dying. I mean, I'm a sucker for this stuff.
The best thing I can tell you about me is ultimately I just don't do anything.
Well, I'm saying I'm out of here. Right.
Later.
Got a good night. Stan, thanks. Okay.
See you soon. I walk in like a fan because and I say it humbly because I really don't do it. I did it when I started. Now I oversee it. Shane oversees it. Everybody else. I just enjoy it. I come in and it's easy for me to say, wow, that's cool. Do more of that, and I'll make sure my name is on the screen.
How many gags are you doing?
We're going to do the inclined one.
Yeah.
After this one. But this one right now, you're more upright. We're just going to do a small blender section.
Hey, I don't like my little tummy there.
I'm not doing all this core work for nothing. That's all I'm saying. Behold the mass.
I'm beholding. We could hold off on this part. We are building a prototype while we're going. We've never built an Iron Man suit before.
Dude, you're zooming in on my hammer right now, aren't you?
He's up on the hammer.
Twisted portal game's going down here.
And so you're given a launching gun, and then you have to hit the finish mark with the suit done. So it's not like we are ever able to kind of make one and then scrap it and make another one and make improvements and scrap that. We have to actually work it all out and deliver at the time we're supposed to.
Faster!
Right now you're in the Stan Winston mold shop, the finishing shop. What you see behind me is where most of the parts are being modeled and parts are being painted. There's about 450 individual parts that make this suit. This is going to be the Mark II's chest. This is where the RT will go, and it's actually spray chrome metal, and it's been brushed. This is actually the process of putting in the rivets based on the design, and it's not really a polished rivet at all. It's just the illusion of a polished rivet. These are two pieces from the Mark III, and these are from our early test. This enormous calf that has sort of the accoutrement of like jet engines and things. But the foot goes in here, and then these panels had to be designed to slide and move. These are large sections of the Crimson Dynamo that are being made. This is a negative flexible mold, and these are just quickie temporary molds to pull out hard shells. What's interesting about what Trevor's painting is that this is a flexible paint for urethane. It doesn't crack or buckle, and we have a lot of parts that are actually flexible. It took a long time to get that to work. This This is Tim Nordella, who's mechanizing the Crimson Dynamo. There's a hatch that opens, revealing the sinister man who's inside. Eventually, it'll all be dressed like a very, very tight and down below, like the cockpit of a dive vessel. But right now, these are just the outer shells and sort of the escape hatch of this particular one.
When you work with someone like Stan Winston's company, so far, this is John and my second film with them. It's still a pretty magical experience when that suit's first rolled out. Shane likes to put it behind the curtain and unveil the curtain in a very dramatic way, and there was Iron Man standing behind. And then you look at it and you touch it, and it's sort of half excitement and half fear because it's very real. And generally you're pretty close to production at that point when that suit's shown to you. So hopefully your research was right and the proportions all line up and the textures are good and the colors and all the decisions you made along the way make sense.
Once you start to not see the whole guy, the proportions of him, and I think 235 is a good move here. I think it holds up really well.
When John first saw it, he was all smiles. I mean, he was really happy. Once the stuntmen had really become accustomed to the suit, when they started out, they were just a little afraid of damaging it. Plates intersecting and chipping off paint and that kind of thing. But by the end of the day, he'd really gotten the full range of motion and had sort of learned to live in the suit. Those dailies at the end of the day were just amazing. I think everyone was just blown away.
You have to be strong and you have to be athletic to do this. It's like wearing very heavy football gear. Your endurance level has to be up for it because it's a double-edged sword. We have to make it light enough to move, but we have to make it heavy enough not to just completely, crack apart when somebody puts too much muscle into it.
So just do a, like the first guy, outside the door.
The Mark I with the flamethrowers and stuff was close to 100 pounds. Without the flamethrowers and the gas and everything on it, it was maybe 60 or 70 pounds. Okay, and roll camera. What it feels like you're doing inside the suit doesn't relate at all. When I'm walking, if I look down to see my mark at all, they notice, but when I roll my shoulders up and try to hit the hero pose, they can barely see it. So it's taken a while to watch ourselves on camera to learn what it looks like and what the moves relate to.
Another rotation, Mike. Right here it locks out. And here the weight comes down from my shoulder. So to be erect, is this what you're looking for?
Well, I just want to see it, because right now we're seeing, I see you crouching, right?
Yeah, the hero poses kind of came from us just kind of striking poses and looking what looked best, and then them saying, yeah, hold that, and things from the comic book that they took and poses they want, and then there were some that we came up with our own, and just different looks and, just trying to show that you can see his character. If he's angry or things are going good in the suit, they wanted to see that on camera.
Roll camera. Action.
Yes, of course there's going to be a great deal of digital work that has to be done to bring something like this to life on screen. But the fact of the matter is these suits truly exist. And they are going to be there. And they're going to be on the set. And they're going to be actors. And we are going to see the real thing along with the digital thing. But when you as an audience are looking at it, screw you up a little bit, so you really don't know what you're seeing. Is that real or is that digital? And then you let go.
My background as a filmmaker is not in this sort of genre. I dabbled a little bit in special effects in Zathura and Elf, but really I come from more of an independent background, primarily a comedic background. And so I really wanted to offer a human side that would fit in with my sensibility of filmmaking. And in assembling the cast that I did between Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges, Gwyneth Paltrow, Terrence Howard, that's a cast that I would be happy to have in a drama or a comedy. And to be able to have them to support a bigger-than-life superhero really offers the possibility to exceed what people's expectations might be of this type of genre.
Listen to me. You are like a little child sitting next to its father in a car with a plastic steering wheel, turning the wheel. Its father's driving, Tony.
That money out of the car. Join me. Let's get that motor to start. We can raise all the funds we call. I was in my revenge in the jungle. It's just one trouble. Just
I didn't know. That'd be great. That'd be great.
I think it was my manager, David Schiff, was very excited about this project. He was telling me about Iron Man. I said, who's directing it? He said, Jon Favreau. I said, oh, God, he's such a wonderful director, writer, and actor. I said, it'd be great to work with him. Who's playing Iron Man? Robert Downey Jr. So, wow, that's a pretty good team right there. And they said, keep me posted. This sounds like a good, something I'd like to get involved with.
We'll let you warm up a little bit, and then we'll start moving.
Robert's a guy who is very disciplined in his approach to everything he does, and he's really gotten his body and his mind into a very, sort of clear, disciplined state, and that sort of carried over into how he prepared for the role.
Wherever the direction is, just point kind of the opposite.
Yeah. When you feel it going the other direction, act like you're trying to counter it. You go the other direction, just like that.
I think he was very aware that he sort of had a burden in this film that he hadn't had before. He could sort of be charming and funny and come in and out of a movie and steal scenes in the past, but now he was sort of an iconic superhero.
It's good to eat about 10 minutes before this, right?
Oh, yeah.
I weight train crazily, and I do a lot of martial arts and yoga, Kung Fu, Wing Chun Kung Fu, but I was doing that anyway. About a year ago, I said, I really want to put on some size, which isn't easy when you're in your late 30s, and now I'm 41. I thought if I'm ever going to do a movie like this, I've got to do it quick before it's not embarrassing. But anyway, I feel like I've got a 5 to 7 year window, and then if it goes past that, then I'm sure all the optical stuff and CGI will have advanced to make you look better.
Good. How's those legs, baby? Yeah, no, great shape. Legs are ready.
Beware this. That's fine. Knee. Across your face. Face gets scratched up. Robert Downey Jr.'s first reactions to the suit were extremely positive, and he was thrilled. So that made us feel good because it is him, after all. He has to feel comfortable being in it. He enjoys the process. He wants to be in the suit as much as possible, which is fun. Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Oh, they don't bend either, right?
No, they just...
Oh, I see.
They're basically rotational, right? They rotate and all the moves are hitting like this.
I thought I'd been training for all these years, and I was pretty butch, and I put on that Mark I suit, which is his kind of escape vehicle, and I almost had a personality meltdown. It also just gives me a great respect for the stuntmen and the guys who are doubling, or I don't even want to say doubling, that me and the other fellows who are really playing Tony in the suits.
Careful after work, because something just snapped off.
And I'm not claustrophobic, and it wasn't anything like that. It was just, I wore it for half an hour, and I kind of ran around, and the next day, I felt like my spirit had been broken. Like, I'm exaggerating, but it's like, these guys are seriously tough-ass guys.
Mark I suit days, we canceled the strength training.
The first time I saw him put on the helmet, I looked at him and said, oh, you are Iron Man. I mean, how amazing is that? For the rest of your life, you are Iron Man. Nobody's gonna take that away from you. And he looks at him and goes, yeah, it's amazing.
I think we need to add some rust to it, but here we are 2 weeks.
I love the lag bolts.
Well, we're right about to start shooting. We're rehearsing now. We have the run of the set. We actually started shooting second winter. We went down to the Santa Monica Pier and shot the Ferris wheel yesterday, and that was exciting. because we crossed a couple shots off our list of the thousands we need. There's a stress factor that kicks in, and that starts to go away and diminish once you capture each shot and each scene on film.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
But right now, all there is anxiety, stress, and going over and over again your plan of attack on this movie that's certainly the biggest movie I've ever been involved in making. I think we have about a 74-day shoot, and day one is on Monday. Robert really wanted to play Tony Stark, and I really wanted him to play Tony Stark. It wasn't the most obvious choice from a studio's point of view. Unfortunately, Marvel is a new studio with a lot of freedom. We weren't dealing with the classic studio system where they have their lists that they generate. There was a lot of freedom to cast the best person for the role, because fortunately with Marvel movies, the image of the superhero is in fact the big draw, the big star. And they've learned that they've had a lot of success in the past when they've hired people who are good, interesting actors and relied upon the name of the brand itself to sort of be the thing that becomes the rallying cry from a commercial standpoint. You then are able to try to make the best movie possible.
How dare you produce the place of just a car? You're only alive because of generosity. You are nothing, nothing. You understand me?
People have drawn parallels to the character in his own life, but that wasn't by any means the decision or part of the criteria by which we chose him. He's a tremendous American actor who has an incredible body of work, and I think has the personality of Tony Stark. He has the look that sort of matches with the comic books. There's sort of a childlike quality to Robert. There's an imagination to Robert that is very similar to Tony Stark, who's an inventor. There's a sense of humor to Robert, which Tony shared. There's a confidence. There were just so many qualities as you began to look through the history of the comic books and who Tony Stark was, and really who Robert is as an actor and as a person.
The American Great Genghis Khan, moving from the Pacific to the Atlantic.
The really fun part about the cave set is the dressing inside. What is life like when you're locked up in a room like that for like 2 or 3 months? And Robert, brought a lot of his own personal experience to the cave too, which was fantastic. I mean, he taught us how you make tea in prison with a nice little sock, or how you make coffee, or how you play games and then make backgammon sets out of nothing, things like that.
With Robert in the Iron Man suit, we tried to keep it at a minimum for him. We'd try and keep it at a partial suit for him so he could do his acting, because it's so restrictive in that suit. And then we would let ILM fill in those blanks where the suit would be full.
Stop, Mom. Get up. Get up.
As an actor, I've never gone through a process like this before, because usually you have a written page and you have a definite set idea of what it's going to be like. But we really found Jensen during rehearsals, sitting around the table and just talking. And the fantastic thing about this project has been everybody's been so open.
You maybe could shave about 90 seconds off your death would be nice, because it's a little uncomfortable leaning over there.
Well,
90 seconds? You heard me.
Robert Downey is just is a jewel. My girlfriend says, I think you're in love with him or something.
Go. Ready, and action!
This is our last day in here. And I remember when these walls were white, and before they were set dressing in. and we're trying to figure out what the heck we're going to do in here. And it's a really cool feeling, and sort of bittersweet, but satisfying when you say it's done. There's no more decisions to be made after 10 months of trying to figure out what we're going to do. But we started off here, and now coming out of here, I feel like I understand who Tony Stark is more. I think Robert does as well. And hopefully, when this whole sequence is cut together, people will totally buy that Robert is in the Iron Man suit, that he built it, and it makes sense. But you don't know. I mean, now as we just finished, I haven't seen any of the scenes cut yet. But I know that every day's work was really good and really strong, and we did better than what was in the script. So we're shooting a close-up of Robert because we can, and then we're leaving the set behind for second unit to shoot a lot of action stuff. But this is fun. There's a lot of memories in here.
In the Mark I suit was mostly Mike Justice. Mike is a strong, fit guy, and in the very beginning, he would be in it for a couple hours, and he literally was spent. It was so hard to do. I mean, imagine carrying around almost 100 pounds on your whole body and being asked to move around quickly and do fight scenes. But as he did it more, he got more in shape to do it, and there were days where he was in that suit, 10, 12 hours. At the end of the day, you go, man, I feel pretty good.
Well, we finally got out of the cave, and now we're shooting at Disney Hall. It was designed by architect Frank Gehry. It's a very beautiful space. Should add a nice look to the movie. And since Tony Stark is an engineer and a designer, we felt that it was important that the locations tie into that sensibility. And when this was available to us, everybody sort of jumped at the opportunity. We have to shoot here at night, so it's going to be very gruesome, brutal shooting hours because we're shooting from dusk till dawn. And this is the first day that we're actually on nights, so I think people will be fading fast.
Mr. Stark, I was hoping I could get a reaction from you.
How's Panic?
I was referring to your company's involvement in this latest atrocity.
Hey, I just put my name on the invitation.
I say the names and then I say my name, and I'm like, holy crap! It's amazing. It's amazing. It's one of those moments. Like I will leave set, and I'll call my agent. And I'll be like, okay, dude, here's how I'm gonna break it down today. I don't know, a man called Jeff Bridges. Yeah, in a scene with them. So it's exciting. And like last week, I was like, yeah, a scene with Terrence Howard and Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, check it. Like it's so good.
Hey, Potts.
What are you doing here?
Just avoiding government agents.
Are you by yourself?
Where'd you get that dress?
It was a birthday present from you, actually.
I got great taste.
Yes.
Come dance?
Oh, no.
All right,
Thank you. The scene at Disney Hall was my first scene in the film. I had taken quite a lot of time off to be with my children and have babies and everything, so it was kind of intimidating the first scene back, to be in this extremely backless dress. It was good that in that first scene that Pepper was kind of nervous and feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I had always wanted to work with Robert. It had been kind of one of my lifelong ambitions. And when I was talking to Robert before I accepted the role, he said, aren't you tired of doing these great little movies that no one sees? Don't you want to be in a movie that people see? And I thought, yeah, that would be fun.
Reedy. You're a greedy. Stan, can we get you for the B-roll? Is everything okay here for you? Are we taking care of you?
I have never been taken care of this well in my life.
life. I'm just a little bit upset knowing that eventually we're going to have to go on there again and do some acting.
Who's the best director of any Marvel movie?
Well, not only the best, but as far as I'm concerned, Jon Favreau
That's
is
right.
the only director. Unless some other director gets me a half a dozen videos.
Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to witness the art. Fantastic work. We like to keep them a bit wet, as they look even more fantastic. Action! How's it going, Hap?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were someone else.
It's okay. I get this all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a camera wrap on the creator of Iron Man.
So when you hinge, I'm trying to get a camera over your right shoulder to get him. I have another camera over his right shoulder to get you.
So what would you? So I should be on this spot when you listen to your likeness.
Yeah.
I've never shaved my head. I always wanted to. I saw the comic book character there, and I said, "Oh, well, this, I'll do this. I'll talk to John about it." And John says, "Well, don't feel like you have to shave your head." I said, "Oh, really?" I kind of wanted him to say, "Oh, yeah, you got to shave your head," but he didn't. So we kind of chipped at it. We kind of took it down steps at a time. And finally, took the plunge and shaved it all off, and it felt most Obadiah-like that way.
Hey, what a surprise.
I'm not going to say anything.
Is that good? I got that.
Let's see inside.
All right, okay, yeah. And,
Say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Find out the whole thing. For your consideration, the Jericho.
The Jericho, 1001, 1000, bang.
This here is Lone Pine. It's doubling for what we're suggesting in the mountains of Afghanistan. I think they did Gunga Din out here. I know they did a lot of westerns out here. This particular angle works really well for Afghanistan, but if you look different ways, the different rock formations make you feel like you're out in the west. Here we're on protected land, so there are a lot of parameters that we have to observe to shoot here, but the trouble that we went through is well worth it because it really gives you a look like we traveled halfway around the world.
When you get to work with the guys at the top of the field, you just go, okay, that thing's going to blow, come back to me, and I'm going to be okay. Or you get hit with like a little frag and everyone runs over because you're like, the star of the movie, and you're like, my God, man, 10 years ago I could have gotten knocked off my ass and have stuff stuck in my skin, and people would be like, all right, back to one. Because if you're not down, then you're not out. I was pretty blown away by how much we were able to do at such close proximity, but I'll tell you, it definitely helps you kick up some dust when you know what you're running away from. John brought everything. John is the primal force behind Iron Man. He's easily half the character. He's infused himself in every department. I won't say he's a gentle giant because he's very formidable, but he is the most composed person in a position of unimaginable stress that I've ever seen. He's so gracious and so evolved.
Robert, you're just such a good actor. You got that?
That said, he's a pain in the ass. He's checking his goddamn BlackBerry, texting and putting things up on MySpace while I'm out there dying. But he's that kind of big brother too. It's like he didn't call me out to, pitch for his team and then like come and, ice my wrist when it got sore. He's like, you're a grown man, this is gonna be really hard, I told you it was. And sometimes I'm 1,000,000% there for you, and sometimes I'm just gonna watch you do whatever you're gonna do. Because it's not up to me to take care of your feelings. You're a grown man.
Pretty good. Yeah. It's pretty good.
Working with actors in the military sense, I don't try to make them warriors from the ground up. What I do is I focus in on the skills required to shoot the scene. They are actors after all. They only need to know how it's done, and then as actors they will pick up on it.
I started just pushing down, and these things are firing like 40 rounds a second, and I'm holding it down, but that will make the barrel very high, so you have to do it in bursts. And his whole thought was, die mother, die mother. Feel your teeth shatter afterwards. It's incredible.
Thank you, everybody, crew of Ironman. Excellent week. Really great week, guys.
A little windy today. Wasn't like this when we scouted it. We're gonna shoot Tony landing in the sand dunes after he escapes from the cave, and then walking through the desert. We got 2 Marine helicopters coming out here. I don't know if we're gonna be able to land them.
Here we go. Pictures up.
It was sandstorming and it was kicking him so hard, and I just remember laying there buried waist deep in all this gear. And I just remember I was inside the helmet, and I just had this great moment of gratitude to kind of the elements and what a privilege it was to be able to be there playing in the sky with the caliber of people I was working with. I just said, wow, man, what a cool deal. What a cool suit, what a great crew, what a blast. Tony Stark.
Okay, there's a cut. Yeah, they're clear. Wardrobe is a boot down there. Sit on the next one.
We've been out here in the sand dunes. It's been a windstorm. There have been a couple of semis slipping over on the highway. The winds were kicking up to about 50 miles per hour. So everybody's making do. We all goggled up, and everybody's been a real trooper, and they're out here working. We've had cranes swinging out of control, and today we're just on sticks because it was just too windy for any equipment more than that. The highway's perfect.
Just a brutal day. Very indicative, honestly, of what the circumstances are like in Afghanistan. So it actually kind of, rang true, I guess, to what things are really like there.
Well, 395, something must have flipped, and they had to send a helicopter for me.
Yeah, that was the ride.
It was incredible. The doors are open. My assistant almost cried.
We brought in a couple HH-60 PAVHawk helicopters. We're actually, pararescuemen and real helicopters and shooters on that, that do that stuff for real, came in and were part of that scene.
when we get out of that helicopter, the first breath you take in is half filled with sand. And your lungs fill up with it immediately. And the cameras are on you, and we've got 10 minutes to get this whole shot. And you've got to run across the desert. Now, if anybody's ever ran in the sand on the beach, they know how hard that is. Now imagine running up a sand dune with your lungs half filled with sand.
The second day, when Raza recovers the suit, the winds were so violent that we couldn't really use any equipment. And Lou Desposito, our executive producer, was like, let's go to a recovery set, as you would if it rained. I felt that all of that wind and heavy wind was a very haunting image, and so we put goggles on all the bad guys and wrapped them with scarves so that, to help protect the performers, and also that's really what they would wear. We just let it play. And as a result, it has such a great visual quality that if you wrote that into a script, you could never really achieve that. You can't put enough Ritter fans in there to make that kind of win. But when it really lands there in your lap, I think as a director, you have to take advantage of those opportunities.
Time for Iron Man to get out of Dodge.
Walk of Destruction, what is it like being inside that suit, shooting flames with the armor on? How does it feel?
It's an awesome feeling. It feels powerful. You're just burning stuff, nothing. You almost have a false sense of security because you really feel super protected by the suit in a way that the boys over at Stan Winston designed it. I can move pretty well in it for as much as it weighs, and the special effects guys rigged me up, just making me look like a bloody stud so I can flow out some flames, and it's an awesome feeling.
Take a couple of hits, and then,
you know what? It's history. This one I'm doing for my kids. They're gonna watch this and go, "That's you, Dad?" I'm just like, dig it. Hi, Taylor. Hi, Tristan. Hi, Mom. Awesome. I love this. Just from wear and tear, we got a little tear in one of the lines and it spit fuel, which being under pressure kept spraying on my legs, and I ignited. And I kind of felt, well, that feels a little hot. Maybe not. Yep, it's hot. It was, an unfortunate thing, but Keith Willard and Tommy Harper had all the boys set out to take care of me. They put me out.
What's going on there, Coach?
I'm finding my character.
The inner driver?
Yes.
What are you doing today?
Like Happy Hogan. At the time, it seemed like a good idea. Let's try to make my hair look like how it looks in comics. This is it. This is what you get.
It's not too dissimilar to your regular haircut.
Is it not?
Just straight.
No, we're gonna put more product in here and straighten it out. It's a little thicker.
It's more of a cameo in this film. I wanted to sort of give myself a way to be in the film. As a director of a big movie, there isn't really a lot of latitude to too much of a performance, but I was able to sort of weave my way in and out of scenes. He's an ex-boxer who's Tony Stark's driver / confidant bodyguard, kind of a sidekick of sorts, although he's not a superhero in any way. And he doesn't crack a smile, and so he ironically is given the name Happy. And it's more for the comic book fans to see that, we're sort of trying, in a way to incorporate as much of the source material as we could, being that this is the first Marvel movie made for Marvel fans.
And here it is. This is it. This is Happy Hogan. I hope the fans like it. You like it, Pete?
It's great. I really do.
The real reason I'm doing this, I just broke it to Gwyneth that I marry her.
Edwards Air Force Base is here about 70 miles northeast of Los Angeles, and John wanted to include Edwards Air Force Base in the story specifically just because it has such a proud heritage of flight tests. They really wanted to tie that into sort of the research and development aspects of Stark Enterprises. So we did a lot of filming there. We shot there for 3 days. We shot on a C-17 cargo plane. We brought in an F-22 and a Global Hawk as set dressing, and we used about 300 airmen and actually Marines as well as extras.
So you've got first look, one shot, one kill. We're at the merge even before they know we're there.
Terrence Howard, we opted in this film to make him an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, although he was a member of the military. In the comic books, he wasn't somebody of that stature, but he was somebody that bonded pretty early with Tony Stark. As a matter of fact, he was involved with his rescue, from what I remember. We tried to incorporate that into the film in a way, as sort of an homage to the books, but we really wanted to flesh out the character even more. And Rhodey becomes War Machine if you follow the course of the books. And as we sort of look forward to see this as a chapter in a series of films, if we could be so lucky, I think that following Terrence Howard as he becomes a superhero in his own right is something I'm really curious and interested in.
That lovely lady you woke up with, what was his name? I think it was Ivan.
No, it's your sister.
Right.
Come on, give us a few seconds, you guys.
Soon after that shoot, those guys cycled over to Afghanistan. So no joke, those are really tough guys, and they get a real tough job to do. And it was really nice to see Terrence and John and Robert interact with them and just be really just humbled by what a tough job those guys got and what real pros they are.
It's nice to see.
Yeah. One more? Okay, watch again.
One more, guys. Going again right away.
The workshop was always the most important set for me. It was the space that was going to tell you before he got captured and builds the Mark I suit that he's a guy who likes fabricating, he likes working with his hands. We have him working on a 32 Ford that we show in a picture that he's working with his dad on. And it just shows that he's a bit of a gearhead. He's a guy who, not only is he a genius as far as design goes, but he actually has a hands-on knowledge of how to build things. And he's an inventor, but the type of inventor who doesn't just work with a pencil. That was important to make that leap so that it didn't just jump into fantasy land when he was in a cave and builds this suit. That he makes a breakthrough that was inevitable because he has a mind that is capable of these kind of realizations. So we put together a shop that would be any car builder's dream. We have everything from old English wheels that look like they were passed down from generation to generation. Maybe they were his dad's that were passed down. And then you also have like CNC machines that are sort of state-of-the-art. With plasma cutters, and everything we figured was tied in and automated to the brain of the house. So I wanted to create a real mix of high-tech and low-tech.
Why are you hosting me out here, Rio? That's
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
You don't like me? What? I don't like you. I don't like you.
Well, I'm allowed to have plans on your birthday, so there you
Is
go.
it your birthday?
It is.
Again?
Isn't that funny? Same day as last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
Hold up the neck. You're probably feeling coolness.
I was definitely not a comic book reader, but my brother was, so I grew up with Marvel comics around the house, and my brother had Spider-Man underoos and Spider-Man sheets and Spider-Man everything from a very young age, and he was definitely into comic books, so I was exposed to it, although, I'm a girl, let's face it, so.
Feel it?
Pus!
Don't worry about it. It's not pus, it's an organic plasma discharge from the device. It's not from the body.
Oh, it smells.
It's basically making a very tall upside down U.
I'm a huge military channel and Sergeant Rock. I mean, so Superheroes are great. Superheroes who manufacture weapons and then build one that they wear and use, to me, is just a complete nerdgasm.
Now we're ready. I think the band's ready to go on. So without further ado, Lieutenant Robert Downey Jr. and the Boot Brigade. In an origin story of a superhero, you have certain responsibilities, one of which is, showing how the hero came to be. And it takes a lot out of a movie to have that kind of burden. But what it gives you is the opportunity to allow the audience to sort of become the hero with the hero. And I have the most fun as a viewer when I see the learning curve of a hero. There's a tendency to want to just go right for the fighting and right for the action. But I know my favorite part of the first Spider-Man film was watching him come to terms with his powers, learn how to swing from his webs. And I referred back to a lot as we met and went to pre-production meetings talking about what the set pieces would be.
I thought you said you were done making weapons.
It is. This is a flight stabilizer.
3, 2, 1, go!
Watch where you point your flight stabilizer.
It's dangerous. I like the guy that he's probably just as likely to kill himself trying to save people as he is to do the right thing.
What? As far as Robert Downey doing stunts, he wants to keep doing more and more, and I gotta keep reining him back because he's very game to just keep right on going. Following him while he's going, so when he hits the wall and falls down, it's like a beat of no movement, and it's just punctuated by the blast. Yeah, it's a timing thing, so.
I like to think that I can do a ton of stuff, and I'm pretty game and physically able, and probably should be for the next, like I said, 5 or 7 years. So, but then I'll talk to Tommy, and he'll be like, yeah, we're not gonna have you do that. I could do that. He goes, no, I couldn't. Well, maybe you could, but I wouldn't let you.
It still hurts, but it hurts every day. Getting up looking like this. It hurts in here. But I'm doing better. I'm doing better. Can I go now?
We're about to do Tony Stark experimenting with a combination of boots and gauntlets. It's his first successful flight in his workshop. Robert here has done a lot of training on this wire rig, and the tests we've done were pretty successful.
Ready, and action.
You're off right here. Frame up on me. Good. Day 11, test 37, configuration 2.0. For lack of a better option, dummy is still on fire. Safety, if you douse me prematurely, I swear to God, I will donate you. You'll be at a city college. All right, we're gonna start off really nice and easy. Don't talk when I'm talking. 1% capacity in 3, 2, 1. Nice.
3, 2, 1, drop.
Great. Steady.
I've done wire work both as an actor and as a director in the past. I think people have been seeing wire work for so long that whether consciously or subconsciously they could tell where the pick points are, they could tell where the wires are attached, and even if you use, computers to paint everything out, there's something about the physics of it that is unconvincing to me. And I was very skeptical if we could use it at all or if we take the audience out of the movie. What we did was we developed a way by which the character was picked or supported by his feet. So he wasn't being suspended by his center of gravity or his hips or his back, as is usually done in these films.
Sorry. Clean up later.
His feet are supporting his weight. So it actually looks like he's being supported by the blast of the repulsors in the bottom of his boots. And you can see the dynamics as he's flying through the air feels much truer to what the real physics of flying being powered by your feet would be.
Learning one's powers is always the most fun.
Okay.
What would happen to you, or to me, to anybody, putting this thing on and trying to operate it? It's like surfing. I feel pretty clumsy in the beginning. And here he's wearing an engine, pretty elaborate thing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Ready, and light, and action.
Something interesting happened when we saw a black and white rendering of the Mark III. It looked kind of silver, and that started our wheels turning, and then we sort of backed into the design of the Mark II, which is sort of a chromed aircraft aluminum sheet metal looking prototype version of the Mark III. And then we started incorporating exposed rivets, and because of the wonderful finishes that they were able to create through the chromium process and nickel plating process over at Stan Winston, it really has a very unique look, and that's something different from anything we've seen in the books before. But it helped provide sort of an intermediate step between the Mark I armor and the final Mark III design.
Tommy, how much is that car? $50,000. It's a replica of a 1967 Cobra SC. Where's it made? In Poland at a MiG factory. That brings a tear to my eye. Do you like cars at all? That hurts.
Over the course of the movie, I dropped a bit of weight. I started off, I remember when I was scouting, I was quite a bit heavier than now. My assistant, Karen, helped me out. She brought me a lot of meals. I didn't spend a lot of time in craft service or going to catering. And over the course of the film, I lost weight. I lost probably about 75 pounds, maybe more, up give or take, depending on where I'm at now. And I went to lose weight because I was playing Happy Hogan in the film. And so I wanted to hit a certain weight, lose a certain amount of pounds, and I just kept going. And there were problems too, because my wardrobe would change in size over the course of the film. And even my wig size changed. It's amazing. Everything sort of changes. Your shoe size changes. I have real hair, but I wanted to have I wanted to have cool hair. So, straight hair, I never had like a real shock of straight hair, like in the comic books.
I had a wonderful time looking at Peter Billingsley, who was a close friend of Favreau's, and I got him to shave his head bald, not as bald as mine, to upstage me.
Peter wanted to shave his head to look a little different, age him up a little bit. When you threw a lab coat on the guy, he looked like he was 14 years old, and so shaving his head, throwing glasses on him, and growing a mustache gave him a little bit more of a distinguished look.
There's an ID, probably a couple pens to watch. In approaching this cameo, I really wanted to send a message to the other actors who I felt were really phoning in their performances, that, guys, let me show you a level of commitment to acting.
The camaraderie that John nurtures on a set is to ad-lib. You don't see that all the time on movies this size, where somebody's on wires, or you're up against a green screen, or you can't move too much because there's going to be a computer effect, and it can get very rigid. It's very important to John that the film not feel rigid, that the film feel and have a flow to it and have a sense of fun to it. Always believable, but never too overwhelmingly pretentious or self-serious.
We're ironmongers. We make weapons.
My name on the side of the building.
And what we do keeps the world from falling into chaos. The spirit in which it was shot and the way we did it was like you might do a small independent art film in a funny sort of way. I think just not towards the end of the movie, I think we just started to kind of get up to speed and start to kind of relax and have faith in this process that the way we do it. Each time we would do one of these scenes, there would be a great sense of relief. Like, man, wow, we got through that one, we pulled it out. You know, how did we do it?
This technology, it comes along once in a generation. And it's a gift.
I think it's him saying either that or I can make it, and you said I said no, and I put it in front of you. Be that. If I have one, will you move it back? If I have one drink, will we move on? Yes. And he takes a drink. Now, do we cheers before that? That'd be good. We have one drink. Okay, here. Please and roll. And boom up. Boom up. Boom up.
Ready and action.
Honey, I hate it when we fight.
Sorry, I'm not mad. I'm just.
I'm sorry.
You don't respect yourself. Definitely know you don't respect yourself. John recognizes that the script is a skeleton. The comic book is a skeleton. You know, what we are creating is real life, so he allows it to grow and to improv and to become something alive and three-dimensional.
I want to be fresh. I know what I'm doing. I live this. This is business travel. I've got a throttle between my legs going, hopping from
What you want to do, just leave me alone.
Join me. 100. To business.
I said no.
To the future. To the Air Force.
Will it get you to shut up?
The look of the film is something that is as much a part of the franchise as the character himself. And as a director, it's one of the elements that you have a lot of control over.
Maybe she does one or two and then hair.
I'm not a cinematographer. I wouldn't know how to light a scene as a cinematographer or a gaffer. I have a lot of respect for what they do. But I do understand the look that I like. And in hiring Matty Lee, who I've been wanting to work with for a while, and I've been a fan of his since his much smaller films, he brings a certain style to it, a certain grittiness, and he's also able to give it a big movie look. And he understands how much a priority reality is, how the challenge for this movie was to ground it in reality, because it's such a fantastic story, such a fantastic character, that your job as a director is to make it personal.
Welcome home, Mr. Scott. Thanks, Jarvis. It's been a long time.
There are two ways to go. One is just to create a spectacle that people can, munch popcorn and ogle at and enjoy, and that certainly is a lucrative proposition. But as a filmmaker who's going to be working on this thing for 2 years and possibly other films to come, it's important for me to have an aspect to it that I could really buy into beyond just being a trifle, being just a treat for the audience. You also want to do something where you're telling a story and maybe speaking to something and going for something a little bit more. And the way Matty lights and the way that Mike Reba designs the sets, it brings reality to it.
About the time that we cast Robert Downey Jr., I was thinking about the house and trying to figure out what kind of design it should be. And even though we had decided on this kind of angular, flat, metallic, hard-edged look, the idea that Robert Downey Jr. it comes with a certain vulnerability with him. And it may sound strange, but we redesigned the notion of the house after casting him. I thought that he would be more suitable in something that architecturally mirrored who he was, a little softer inside, a little bit more susceptible, a little more vulnerable. There was a certain vulnerability about him, so I thought round is nice, and it's more elegant, and it just seemed a little bit more womb-like.
When this project first came along, they gave me a bunch of the comic books and history of the characters and so forth, and I said, ooh, Obadiah Stane's got this wild suit, ironmonger suit, and all these different things. And I got kind of excited about that again. They kind of the kid in me.
We'll counter your moves, so wherever you move, we'll kind of go with you and take the weight of the suit itself.
You have rotation by yourself.
Yeah, I've got it now by myself, right?
So you can spin your weight. There you go. That's always just you.
Then when I met with John the first time, he said, "Oh no, you don't get to wear a suit." And I kind of went, "Oh," and because it was the Mandarin. It was originally then there was going to be like 2 different bad guys, and I said, "Oh, okay, well, let's see how it works out." And the scripts were being worked on, and it came back and was, "Oh, it looks like you wanted to wear a suit. Now you've got your suit." I said, "Oh, great."
And now, I'm gonna kill you with it! You pull out my targeting system! Hold still! Fire. Make it set. Fire.
I think it was the most strange for Gwyneth. Although she had worked on a green screen show, Sky Captain, she never really worked on perfection. She said that was very different from this. Because in this film, she's looking at like a 10-foot tall robot that's being operated by puppeteers in front of her, and she's having explosions go off behind her, windows being blown out, lights going crazy, things melting down. And she was right in the heart of it, running through sets at full tilt, and with things blowing up behind her, and she'd never experienced anything like that before.
I told her it was Remains of the Day 2.
When I did Sky Captain, that was very surreal because there was literally nothing. There was nothing practical. There were no props and no sets, and that was just sort of like doing experimental theater or something, off Broadway, because you were just in a room with some actors. And this, I was so used to working with actors and real sets that when they said, okay, now like a big monster's coming out of the ground, then I felt like, this is so silly. And John said, oh, don't worry, so I just thought, right, well, you just have to really go for it.
The first half hour of being in the Ironman suit is like the coolest Halloween you ever had, except you're alone in the trailer before they call you on a set or whatever, or you're getting ready and you just catch a glimpse and you go, that's right, Grandma would be proud. And then, because it's not really, it's designed for guys to wear, but I'm not a stuntman. And most of the stuntmen aren't doing 65 scenes in the next 3 weeks. Most of them are young enough to not have a teenager at home. It was tough, and as we went further and further along, I realized I could wear the suit all the time, but I can't wear the suit all the time and be an effective actor.
I'm sorry, did that interrupt your flow? I guess this is a draw.
A last couple of weeks of shooting, I was like, you know what? I made it this far. I need to sleep. I need to eat pasta. I don't care if I'm puffy tomorrow. Don't put me in a t-shirt, kiss my ass. I did all that stuff because then the job is you drop the saddlebags and you charge out of Dodge City, you know, because you want to get out without getting your ass bit by a rattlesnake.
Now it's time for both of us to go. That's the law of nature, Tony! Oh!
Ladies and gentlemen, on to Las Vegas. That is a wrap. Thank you, everybody.
Here we are out in front of Caesar's Palace, the third movie I've done here. And we're exhausted. We're doing a death split, which means you start at midnight and go into the next day. We tried to turn around. Everybody stayed up as late as they could, gambling and partying last night, and tried to sleep all day. I, for one, was not able to sleep all day, and I have to act and direct today. So this could all go to hell in a handbasket on our last day of principal photography. But here we are. This is the big finish line. We always knew that if we got here, we'd be in good shape. So it's a bit of a celebration. It's going to be a fun scene. We're going to start outside, then go inside, and here he is, Tony Starks.
Tony Stark. I'm just saying, we don't need sleep. We got talent.
That's right.
Hey, Marcus.
Work it, work it, work it!
Winner
I'm just so proud of everybody and satisfied and the whole deal. I mean, in my psyche right now, it's that thing of like someone saying the last day of high school and, you know, and you kind of just can't wait to throw your hat up, but then you're like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I just remember last, you know, October, November, and meeting John regarding this, and then screen testing, and then pre-production. To me, like most of us were burnt by the time pre-production was done because we pricked ourselves into a tizzy. And then there's the starting in the first 2 weeks in the cave, and then going to Lone Pine, and then it was Air Force Base. I mean, it's the problematic thing of looking at a schedule or looking at what your life, anyway, looking at what their life is for the next 3 months. It's like, this can't be done.
Thank you, everybody. That is a wrap.
You know, every movie has its trials and tribulations. We did encounter a snowstorm in the middle of the desert in KFC, which was very odd. We did have sets that blew away and blew down, but it actually, the movie gods were with us most of the time. And while it was always daunting, it went fairly smoothly, which was great for our first production. It was very important for our first production.
Ladies and gentlemen, drop that rope, Director Marvel!
That's a testament to John, to the crew that we put together, and to the cast, who were always game, could always maneuver through whatever circumstances were thrown at them. And, you know, we did it. We came in on time and under budget.
Take a look at this. Yeah.
Take a look at this. Take a look at this.
I want you to go to SU-137.
It's looking good. And Dan extended it?
Yes,
you did.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This just came in?
Oh, that's much
Yeah.
better.
It came in yesterday as a temp.
There's your little ribs moving.
All right.
See that again?
Let's put up the expensive crowd.
There's that actually does have to watch out. That little rib event. Yeah, we got to rack down. I want to see under the floor a little bit too. Does that help?
Well, they also added, what I like is the heels, you know, that we had on the Mark II as well. They added it here, which we didn't have in the operation, and that's very cool.
The thing I think that makes the biggest difference is the heavy arm actually operating the screw.
Yeah, I think right.
And that one too. There's one on the right there.
Yeah.
As you go up, just take a few frames forward. That thing's coming off of there. I'm just wondering if a little bit more so you see that. It's almost happening out of frame.
So we should just delay that when that piece comes out. If we could delay that event. Because it closes as soon as we're on.
Yeah, it's because there's something right at the beginning. You want something sort of in the middle to go. So you just go, yeah, the party started. But it's definitely cool. It's definitely better.
You're right, it's much better, and that actually helps a lot with those little flippies. All right, anything else to look at?
No, and then when we get out, I thought it was longer. Why is the trim so short?
It's on the step. It's on the step.
That looks like it's very short. I thought some of what was cool about it was that
There's a wide on the
Yeah,
he walks out. I am in the mocap suit in this. This is a shot we were trying to get the first reveal right. He moves a little
How's
too much
that?
like Happy Hogan.
So you have it in the cut there?
Take it down now.
You have the previous?
That's way short. So here's my question. Clearly we're going down a dead end right here because we're changing the performance on this thing. I like the camera angle, but now Dan's cutting out. I'm assuming going downstairs. I'm not going to tell him, hey, get me one more half a step. That breaks the shot.
Well, should we try and get Dan here for a minute and maybe at least he can tell us?
We can, but I know what he's going to say. He's going to say, why would I have him just go a half a step? It throws off the reveal. This is all about the reveal. So right now I'm cutting in the middle of a head turn. And the head turn's throwing off the reveal. So let's change that. Maybe that'll take some of the curse off of it. But we're now cutting even shorter the reveal. And the whole idea of this was to make it longer. Which is why when we did the mocap performance, we looked at the full length of the plate to see what we had.
Right.
And then after we did that, we found out that we could get it.
Exactly.
This stuff is looking freaking awesome.
That's a tap too.
What is a tap tap?
Can we find it?
So can we talk about,
Should I put a mullet in there?
you guys like the texture of the game?
I love everything about it.
Yeah?
I love the animation too. All those pieces coming in.
Okay, that's nice. That's really cool.
Oh, I think I buy that more. I think it's got a clap. That's got a sort of clap more flow. See how it's sliding? It's got to slide in and then go kunk, kunk. Yeah. And I think there should be some sort of undergap to it too. It's starting to imply. I think it's gonna be good. Should there be backs to it or something so it doesn't just feel like a...
I got you.
Do you know what I mean?
So it should be seamed around here.
Something that should be another sort of maybe like cranial element because it just feels very 2D. It just feels very... The whole thing as an Ironman should be...
Yeah, it should be tough.
Do we want to have one spin or no spin at all?
I like to spin. Remember we were talking about him going out upside down?
Yeah.
That's what we had talked about. Like he was sort of coming out upside down and not spinning. The spin feels a little bit like when he did the dogfight pencil. Maybe. So that's what we talked about. So I thought he's out of frame. I thought it was a little too self-conscious.
Showy.
A little too showy.
Okay.
Where am I going now?
Sit down to the mix, and then hopefully we can sit with Dan and look at 6 or 7 yards.
All right. Here it is, the character of Noah. Let's see if he's in there. I like the actual RT sound itself.
Well, no, I was only bringing you in for that.
Let's see that one more time. Good. Yeah. See again? I think it's good. So those sound like servos, right? So the layers I'm expecting that we'll get to now are going to be the winding up of the RT.
Right. And also movement, presence and sort of servo / plasma sort of type of sound for him moving around.
Good.
As well.
And because this is like when we're seeing the RTs being used against people too, it's the first time we're really showing it. We might want to sweeten it with like, on top of the sound we should have something in our pocket like a thunder crack or something to sort of bury in there, kind of like we did with the pig squeal and stuff. Just to give it a little more pop if it's not, because it has to be a little more overwhelming than it is later. It has to have its own like signature, holy shit, this guy, it's like the first time Dirty Harry fires a Magnum. It's got to really be a special one. Don't worry about consistency, worry about impact.
Called for Ironman and said, "Can you help us?" It's Ironman. Are you kidding me? I mean, of course I want to work on Ironman. I mean, of course you want to do that. I mean, I love Marvel comics. I love Spider-Man. I used to read Iron Man. John Nelson called and said, "Can you guys come in and look at some of these interfaces?" There's a lot of text you can't quite read, and it's very technical, but it wasn't advancing the story. But this is the kind of thing, different ideas for how those interfaces look. John always used the reference of the iPhone kind of thing, and the simplicity. He felt like Tony Stark would be really visually sophisticated and not just like a technological nerd, but he would have a real sense of style, and all the products in his house would have a real sense of his high design sensibility.
Connect to the Cisco, have it reconfigure the shell metals, use the gold titanium alloy from the Seraphim tactical satellite. That should ensure fuselage integrity while maintaining power-to-weight ratio gravity.
Yes. Shall I render you the proposed specifications?
So we want to show that the computer is processing something specific to that, whereas the interfaces prior to some of them just looked complicated, but they didn't look specific to the story, and John was very specific about story point, even though it's a pan from one monitor to another, and you only have 3 seconds, I still want to get what's going on with those monitors. The beginning designs on the hologram. That's that. But then they let us work on the main title, and we came up with a ton of stuff. We had the idea of the title itself kind of.
As a company our size, we always like to put our best foot forward and get as much out there as we can, make a really good impression on the pitch. So, we pitched a lot of different styles and a huge range of things from, the shiny, glossy kind of look to something kind of gritty and textural. When I'm involved in an effort of that scale, I always like to just do something completely different, knowing that those stand a great chance, but maybe there's an opportunity for something else.
I had a board that had flying. The interface, he says I am Iron Man. The HUD display, okay, it's in the, comes up around and takes off. The kind of brief that I gave him here is that I thought when he says I'm Iron Man, it should be like a celebratory thing. And I also thought about, I like the interaction of the robots, and so we had a board that was all about type, that was kind of a very complex kind of situation with type being made by robots. And John felt like there wasn't a lot of detail on the material of the suit itself, so he very much responded to a board that was all about the inner mechanics of the suit. But we had this little motion test, and John saw it and really liked it.
And this is what we had showed to them the first meeting. I decided, well, maybe it would be kind of interesting to do something that's like a video game, kind of wireframe sort of looking. Tempest, that's It was fully Tempest. The color, the look of it. It was that in a combination of Tron. I liked Tron a lot at the time too, and a game called Battlezone. So I was a real. I would go into arcades all the time as a kid to spend like $40 in quarters at a time on these things, and that was a lot then. To do. I'm kind of dating myself.
John saw it and really liked it, and I think he wanted to move away from the kind of language of Spider-Man and have something that was more kind of funky and now Kevin was a little bit more he was wondering if it became a conversation then about what's the level of rendering. Well, it looks retro, and I was like, no, that retro is that's what's cool about it.
And talking to the director, at that point, we were going back and forth so much, between what can it be. We went a little bit too far, I think, in the sort of printed kind of look, and it ended up looking like paper in a way, so we were kind of happy with that. Fortunately, after showing them that, they didn't like that very much. We went right back to it. What was super cool for us was that ILM had given us they gave us the CG model for Iron Man. So you can imagine the detail in that. I mean, we're peeling apart layer after layer. It was just endless. I think these guys had spent months at this thing. But it was so fun to be able to just take that plate, you remove it, there's this mesh, you remove that. There's all these like little screws and bolts and nuts and all of that, which is really evident in this shot here. It's crazy what these guys did. They just, it's like real machine work. They just went and did every single piece. The detail these guys put in, it's just such a labor of love for them. They really, really figured this thing out. Like we wanted a little bit of a hint of film here, and then we just kind of give it a lot of nice grain and texture and all that kind of stuff. Ilya had come up with this look, to give it a little bit of an imperfect quality. And they wanted us to put War Machine in there, so we found a good opportunity to do that, I think, on this here. Dave Reiner had modeled this. So all of this was made here at Prologue. We had a couple reference photos to go off of to be able to do that. And then here, I like even like laser tag, how they have all the black light kind of thing. My kids play that. They love that stuff, but I think it's not as popular anymore, but I thought it might be kind of fun to explore that just a little bit right here.
So here we are. You guys are working extremely hard, I know, but I think
close up this part.
We're working extremely hard, but one of the things that we do need to do is kind of formulate how we're going to finish now. What is our task at hand to get this movie so that we can clearly have prints by the end of March.
The one relentless thing, calendar-wise, is VisFX. That's the big number. Once we run out of time,
right?
And so I want to make sure that they're not waiting, because oftentimes they have people hop-bumping and working around the clock at these vendors, and if I don't get in there when they need me, there are people waiting. At a certain point, the bell's going to ring and we're not getting the shots in, and that's honestly the most concerning part of the process to me right now.
As of today, we have 162 outstanding shots, out of which 22 were always the Gomer ones from March 21st. So outstanding is 140.
The caveat that really ultimately is going to be Iron Man's voice, because no one's ever seen it actually as something that really works yet. So it's like one of those things, it's just like your VFX, until they work, they don't work. And it's like
and it could mean pulling out a lot of lines or adding lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, the character of the film just radically altered. So that's the one, the shared discovery that they'll have a lot to say.
Is it the same for Marvel too, or not?
Yes, it is.
Because you haven't heard Real 4 yet, where you're actually...
And maybe even John
it doesn't really start till Real 5, because we don't use Iron Man voice in the first part.
Now the space battle stuff,
because it's such an important story point, and because there's so many moving parts between ADR, performance, robot voices, the effects themselves, the music, all the things are going to sort of come together and have to pay off in a way that I'm not completely confident in. A big thing that we're going to have to dial and understand as we see the shape of it in the cut and as all the finals land is the degree of ice that's on him. And that's going to be all bent over there. And that's going to be something where I think we're going to be really dialing in and out more than we have with most of the shots we've been working with them.
Once again, to be honest with you, Charlie, I just honestly think we're not going to, we'll need to go through that weekend, I think, just to get this thing fixed, just to get up to the playback on the 17th.
So you want to be mixing all the way through.
Well, I'm just being real with this pace, you know, what we're trying to do and what's all going on.
Now, I told him no slash Brody in his Air Force one. So that one I think was already done.
No, these are awesome.
So they'll be toys. You'll be able to purchase them. Yeah, or I mean, I can send this to you, but they'll be like in the toy store. Come on, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Look at that one. The Mark One's awesome.
Pretty great.
That's the best manga.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's sick. That's the best toy yet.
Generally, it's not really worth chasing, really.
Okay.
Well, it's just this one shot.
Yeah.
Can we see just what is it about the color that seems a little? See the blue on the left there? Maybe we can use that as a guide to try to swing it.
Okay. All right.
So it's hard to really read it on the glass.
This is also, do you see how I'm swinging it away from the red in his skin?
Yeah, no, that's
okay, great.
It's a very interesting time now, and I remember this on other movies, and boy, you don't know what's going to happen. This could be anything from a flop to a moderate single, where you get on base and you just keep plugging along in your career, to something that, where it's beyond what people's expectations are. I honestly don't know. I'm sort of the worst person to handicap that kind of thing right now. I'm in the worst seat in the house. I'm right in the thick of things. I don't know where we are.
Can you click it up maybe a hair there?
Right now I'm worried about the minutia. Right now there's still shots from ILM we're waiting to get back. I don't know if that space battle is going to pay off. I'm still in the sound mix, the DI, and we're still making picture changes. That's just the nature of things. This non-linear style of post-production. It used to be you would lock a movie, you'd do the music, and then you'd sit back and mix at this point. Well, we're still making picture changes. Ramin's still composing score cues for us, if it doesn't quite fit. We're dancing as fast as we can. And then I'm going to be promoting the thing all around the world. This is a bit of a fever pitch. We're getting all the shots in. We're trying to finish them up. All the work of 2 years is all paying off now. We've showed it to some people. We've shown like an unfinished version to like Paramount foreign distributors. They laugh. They like it. We've shown scenes at Comic-Con, WonderCon. They all like it. I've shown friends. But this is a Marvel movie. We don't test these movies. So I don't know. They don't want it getting out on the internet. It's a very secret process. So I really don't know how people are going to react to this thing. I know the people close to me seem to like it. I know that there's funny scenes, there's scenes with a lot of heart. There's a lot of truth in it. I love the performances, I love the cast. I think the suit worked out really well. I think ILM did a spectacular job. The score sounds good to me, and certainly the sound effects sound great. So I don't know.
So this is the all ADR cut that's loaded.
All right. What we got here?
How do you think you want my chess piece? 48% power and falling, so that chess piece was never designed with the same flight. Keep it posted. I've located this pass.
Johnny!
I'm fine.
You gotta stay. You better get out of there soon.
Well, all those 3 lines are they complementary? That's a good question. Yeah. Assuming we could get it to sound the same.
Your services.
Okay, because you
The
have.
whole thing about him pointing the gun, a line over pointing the gun explains why he's not smoking, right? That's the whole.
That's the yeah.
So your services are no longer required. I would push over that. I know we had it there once before.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would get what a waste out of there.
Okay.
And I would just
start duplicating it. ADR work good?
So right here. He hates when directors point at the screen during photo. I do it all the time.
Your services are no longer required.
Okay, so we're talking about right here, and getting rid of oil waste.
And then comment.
Oh, you're using mixed hands?
So just right.
They'll be just in the dialogue tracks.
That's even worse. If the director snaps, he loses his fingers to the cuts.
This is how they know it cut. Give them really a cut.
Your services are no longer required.
Is a pepper pots before your service is no longer required? Or is that cut?
You could tell me that this thing barely made its money back in its theatrical release, I would believe you, or then it blew up, and I would believe that too. I know there's a lot of big movies coming out this summer, and they look good. As the head of Sony Distribution told me last time around, he says there's only so many seats in the bus, you know, and you know, you got about 3 or 4 movies get to be a hit in either a holiday season or a summer season, and you're either in it or you're not.
Pepper Potts. Pepper Potts. Your services are no longer required.
Pepper Potts. Come on, Jeremy, you said that was a good one. Pepper Potts.
That was the studio select.
That was the one that came with the line, Pepper Potts, I have the feeling you're trying to avoid me. It's so beautiful, what a waste.
I know that I'm proud of it. I know that we've done everything we can. I know that we're hitting some sort of note because we're getting feedback. After Comic-Con, we showed the footage, people got on board and got excited about it. And now it's being spoken of in the same breath as like Batman and Indiana Jones. I mean, we weren't part of that conversation when it started out off. We were like an unknown quantity. It built from like a small little grassroots thing into something where people are anticipating it. So I know the awareness is there, which is something I didn't have on Zafira the last time I worked on. So it feels different than that.
As our first film out of the gate, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more proud of the film that we put together, the team that we put together, the cast that we put together, and of John. It feels very, very good to have this kind of buzz on a character that outside of hardcore Marvel fans, most people didn't know a year ago. Most people did, well, was he the guy in the metal and the suit and the goatee? Maybe people knew. And now, the name Tony Stark is as famous as the name Iron Man. It feels exciting. It feels like people are ready to go out there and start the summer off with our film, which is going to deliver.
When the first one out, people seem to be, you know, ready for the thing. Let's see if that internet buzz translates to a larger buzz and anticipation with the general audience. But I do feel confident going in. I get the suspicion that I'll be doing more of these. You know, it could potentially change the nature of my whole life and my whole career.
I'm in